All aboard, for it is time for the second stop on our 100-year journey in 1921 with the Phantom Carriage. Now this film is a classic with a capital C, even making it into the esteemed Criterion with a capital C collection with a capital C. It is in fine company there, sitting alongside such other classics as Don't Look Now, Eyes Without a Face, and Armageddon. The Phantom Carriage is an early example of basing a horror plot around a seasonal event. This was of course many decades before the slasher subgenre hacked and butchered its way through every birthday, Halloween and bar mitzvah known to man. The seasonal event in question this time is New Year's Eve. According to legend, as warned in the film, he who dies on that day is doomed to serve as death's driver for the following year. Like the world's most depressing courier, your ghostly soul travels about in the Phantom Carriage, endlessly collecting the recently departed. As seen here, Death's driver is already awaiting this particular man's death. It has been noted that the horror of this movie does not come from a ghost creeping around a haunted mansion waiting to jump out of a bucket, but from the sad inevitability of death itself. Your end is already predetermined before the trigger is even pulled. Now it's just a matter of taking a final ride in the back of the Phantom Carriage. See you later. The film begins with a dying woman, Sister Edith, whose deathbed request is for a man named David Holm to be called upon. Everybody around her thinks this is a most terrible idea, but we do not know why or who David Holm is, but it creates a sense of intrigue. What has this man done to create such disdain? And oh boy, do we find out. Our protagonist, David Holm, is soon revealed. David Holm is a real class act, if by class we are referring to the lowest of the bloody low. He is a drunkard, he is selfish, rude, obnoxious, cruel, lazy, pathetic, sickly and diseased. He lacks empathy, frequently laughing in the faces of others' misfortune or sincere attempts to help. Fights and disturbances are a common occurrence whenever he is around. He is the kind of idiotic prick who seems to take pride in his crass manners. He ruins the lives of all of his loved ones and corrupts any soul who is unlucky enough to get swept up in his mess. Honestly, I could go on and on, but let us just say he is a vile c*** with a capital C. Of course, despicable David dies just before the stroke of midnight on the new year. The previous year's death driver, who it turns out is an old dodgy friend of his,
Hello there.
informs David he is to be the new driver. Before that happens, however, he is given a slideshow of all of his greatest shits, all of the lives he tore apart, all of the pain and misery he has caused.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
I will not divulge the details of these acts, because I wouldn't want to spoil the fun now, but the film spends much of its runtime showing David his horrible life, and the tale of it is still yet to come. You see, his actions are continuing a dark butterfly effect. In this sense, the film is almost a companion piece to A Christmas Carol, as the lead character slowly grows remorseful and seeks redemption. But with the film's uncompromising bleakness, the question of a successful redemption is never a surefire thing. The Phantom Carriage continues to hold a level of prestige, especially in its native Sweden, though its reputation seems to have somewhat faded over the years. Upon release, it was celebrated for its groundbreaking special effects and unconventional narrative structure, with much of the film taking place in flashback. Some scenes even operate as flashbacks within flashbacks, which was certainly unusual in that era. At times, this framing device allows the film to adopt a familiar notion of folklore told around a campfire, but it also gave the film a more literary feel, allowing for crucial plot information to be withheld until deep into the film's duration. It goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, damn you! Should the film have been told in a linear narrative, the film would be far, far less engaging, and would lack the punch of several character revelations and twists. The spectral apparitions were achieved through double exposure, created entirely in camera. The background footage was shot, the film was then rewound, and then the actor was filmed against a black background. The director ensured the actors were well lit, so when the final shot was composited together, they would shine with a spooky glow. double exposure was already a common tool in cinema by 1921, especially when used for portraying ghosts, but Phantom Carriage was heralded as the greatest use of the tool in action. For example, the team were able to pull off little tricks such as this, where the carriage is obscured behind the seaside rocks. Some of the shots required as much as 4 takes, so really it wasn't so much double exposure as quadruple exposure. It was complicated and arduous, but the final effect is genuinely haunting, atmospheric, and impressive. And despite falling into relative obscurity with mainstream audiences compared to other silent era classics, the Phantom Carriage's influence on big-name filmmakers can be plainly seen. Acclaimed Swedish director Ingmar Bergman was a huge champion of the film, watching it annually. Its gloomy tone and depictions of a death figure can be felt in his seminal film, The Seventh Seal. Stanley Kubrick too has been cited as loving the Phantom Carriage. Just take a look at this scene.
And I'll blow your house in.
In its own right, it is peppered with many well-composed shots, successfully creating a grim atmosphere. Many accuse old cinema as being shot rather flatly, but that is not at all the case here. To conclude, the horror genre is fraught with tales of tragedy, and this film is no exception. At first, the chills are issued by the ghost stories and creeping visions of the walking dead, but the horror is really developed by the harshness of the film's protagonist, and the familiar, bleak reality of the situations he waded through, reaching what is, even now, a century later, quite an impactful ending. The film closes on a strong, emotional beat. It was undercut, however, by my ignorance of the Swedish language. As I absorbed the film's message and final frames, I sat back in my chair and reflected on my own faults and regrets, before the screen faded to black and called me a fucking whore.